Brace yourselves, a powerful cold wave is on its way this January, and it's shaping up to be one of the harshest winters we've seen in years. Experts predict that parts of the east, and especially the southeast, will bear the brunt of this severe winter weather. Now is the time to prepare. Don't get caught off guard. Stock up, stay safe, and keep warm as we head into this challenging season. In today's video, we're diving into the upcoming weather pattern, which includes the potential for a major snowstorm and possibly even a blizzard along the eastern seaboard. The GFS model is still hinting at this possibility, with projections of the storm system dropping to the lower 970s in pressure, a very intense system. If it verifies, this could be one of the strongest snowstorms we've seen in years. Additionally, we have a new monthly outlook from the National Weather Service's Climate Prediction Center for January, which looks exceptionally cold. We'll be discussing the expected severe cold, including some of the coldest temperatures we've seen in recent years, possibly even the past decade. First, let's take a look at the past 30 days, excluding December 1st. What we see is colder than average temperatures across the eastern United States. If we were able to include December 1st, the data would likely show even colder conditions. Meanwhile, the western and central regions have experienced significantly warmer temperatures. Now, let's examine the updated 6-10-day outlook. For January 6-10, warm conditions are expected along the west coast, extending up to Alaska, while much of the central and eastern United States is forecasted to experience very cold temperatures. The core of this cold air will likely affect the Midwest, West Plains, Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Deep South. Moving on to the 8-14-day outlook, January 8-14th, the cold intensifies, particularly in the southeastern corner of the country. This aligns with patterns we've been tracking for days. The west remains warm, extending up into Alaska, consistent with prior trends. The 3-4-week outlook, although not recently updated, approximately 5 days old, shows similar patterns for January 11 to 24, cold in the east and warm in the west. Now, let's focus on the updated January outlook from the Climate Prediction Center. The latest data confirms colder than average conditions across most of the east for the entire month of January, which isn't surprising given the severe cold expected through the 15th. While the northeast might see slightly warmer conditions, a surprising deviation, the overall trend remains cold, especially in the northern plains, upper Midwest, and southeast. This pattern is heavily influenced by a phenomenon known as the negative NAO, North Atlantic Oscillation. A negative NAO occurs when higher pressure develops near Greenland and eastern Canada, often resulting in colder air being pushed southward. This is likely why New England might see slightly warmer temperatures, as the intense negative NAO causes the cold air to funnel toward the southeast instead. At the same time, the positive PNA, Pacific North American pattern, is driving warmer conditions in western North America, including Alaska. Together, these patterns are channeling cold air into the south and southeast, creating a unique setup. This configuration increases the likelihood of snow in areas farther south than usual. Finally, let's look at the very latest model data, updated at 6:18 p.m. today. Happy New Year's Eve, by the way. As of tomorrow afternoon, January 1st, the models are already showing snowfall developing. A snowstorm is expected over the northeast, mid-Atlantic, Ohio Valley, and interior areas, particularly in higher elevations. Cold air will begin pouring into the east by January 1st, following a mild New Year's Eve today. December full. If you've been keeping up with the videos, you know this is exactly what we've been predicting for days, possibly even weeks, so everything is definitely going according to plan. We're also seeing the gradual warming in the west, which has been expected. The positive PNA pattern continues, with warmer temperatures pushing up the west coast. This effect is expected to intensify even more later on. For tomorrow, snow is also expected in the northwest, so keep that in mind. By Thursday afternoon, January 2nd, the east cools down slightly, but it will also be drier. This cool down is more typical, with temperatures dropping about 10 to 15 degrees below normal. It's the kind of pattern we've seen throughout December, colder, but nothing extreme yet. On January 3rd, temperatures cool down a bit more, and we see some light snow showers over the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, and the Appalachian mountain range. Meanwhile, the warmth in the west continues pushing northward, but hasn't reached its peak yet. By Saturday, January 4th, the east remains relatively cold, though some warmth extends further east toward the Rockies and south-central states. Over time, a developing low-pressure system is expected to slide through. However, there's significant uncertainty about its exact path. Some models suggest it will dip far south, potentially bringing snow to the Carolinas and Virginia, while others, primarily the European model, predict a more northerly track, resulting in snow for the mid-Atlantic. This system has been trending snowier, but it's important to note that this is not the major blizzard we've been discussing as a possibility near January 10th. The keyword here is possible, as this is just what the models are showing. For those new to the channel, I share my opinions occasionally, but my videos focus on analyzing and interpreting model runs. I aim to present the raw data and help you understand it, but this is not a forecast I've drawn up myself. I'll always make it clear when sharing my opinion by saying, "This is what I think," or something similar. With that said, let's continue into Sunday, January 5. According to the GFS model, the low-pressure system organizes near Oklahoma and Texas, leading to heavy snow for parts of Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky, Illinois, and beyond. This scenario even poses a potential snowfall threat for areas like North Carolina. However, it's worth noting that only the GFS and a few other models show snow this far south. The European model and others place the snowfall further north, with rain in areas like Virginia and North Carolina. Since we're now about 5 days out, we're entering the medium to short range for forecasting, but there's still considerable uncertainty. This variability makes pinning down the exact forecast a bit challenging. Looking at the overnight hours leading into Monday, January 6th, the Ohio Valley appears to be in for a decent snowfall. The low-pressure system is projected to move near southern Tennessee, with snowfall spreading across northern North Carolina and Virginia. This could be a significant snow event for areas that haven't seen much snowfall in 4 or 5 years. Accumulations could range from 2–4 inches, with localized amounts potentially reaching 6 inches. However, by Monday evening, around 7 p.m., the system begins to dissipate. The snow lasts through the morning and much of the day before tapering off. Due to the presence of Arctic air, daytime temperatures will be cold enough to support snowfall. This setup is reminiscent of a snow system we saw in 2016 or a similar year. The 2017 snow event in Virginia and North Carolina comes to mind. It was initially forecast to be almost exclusively a North Carolina snow event, but Virginia also saw significant snowfall. I believe we received about 3 inches, even though the expectation was 0. It ended up being quite a lot given the circumstances. Daytime snow events, while less common than nighttime ones, do occur in these areas, so it's important to note that it's not impossible. By Tuesday, January 7th, conditions become much drier, but this is when the major cold air really begins to set in. At this point, we will have experienced about 5 to 6 days of primarily cold air, but it's about to intensify dramatically. Around this time, moisture begins to build near the Gulf of Mexico, setting the stage for the potential development of a nor'easter. This could become a major snow system beginning near Texas. By Wednesday, January 8th, Gulf moisture continues to develop. The jet stream dips closer to the Gulf, pulling the moisture northward. This setup creates the potential for the moisture to spin up into a significant storm system as the cold air intensifies. By Thursday, January 9th, some of the Gulf moisture fails to move up the coast, but another round begins to develop. At this point, a northern piece of energy combines with the Arctic air mass. A low-pressure system forms over Michigan, with a cold front and warm front dynamic. However, due to the extreme cold, all precipitation falls as snow, an unusual scenario. A polar vortex settles over the Dakotas and Minnesota, creating intensely cold conditions. By Friday afternoon, January 10th, we begin to see further development. A secondary low-pressure system appears to form, which could potentially move up the coast. However, the models currently indicate a broad area of low pressure rather than a singular defined low. This diffuse pressure system results in a weaker storm compared to earlier model projections. While it's still a substantial snow system with low pressure, its overall intensity is diminished. The polar vortex dips further south, moving into Iowa and Missouri, and eventually settles near Kentucky. This leads to heavy snowfall across the mid-Atlantic and northeast. However, the system appears messier than in previous model runs, underscoring the need to interpret these projections cautiously. Storm signals remain present in the models, indicating major storms are possible. Importantly, the severe cold is already locked in place, which is typically the more challenging piece of the puzzle to secure. The storm's exact placement and intensity, however, are more likely to shift in future model runs. I've seen comments asking why people are excited about a major blizzard. Of course, no one wants dangerous conditions, but I hope that many of you who've been wishing for snow get to see it. I'm rooting for all of you, and myself here in Virginia, to experience some snowfall this winter. By Saturday afternoon, January 11th, we see heavy snowfall across the mid-Atlantic and northeast. The storm remains intense with a low pressure of around 971 millibars, but the broader low pressure center results in a slightly different scenario. The general look remains consistent, but with subtle variations. As we approach the midpoint of January, the European model continues to align with these patterns. While it doesn't depict a major blizzard, it does show the first storm with greater confidence. This system moves through the northeast, followed by a second storm that develops further north near Oklahoma and Kansas. By Monday morning, January 6th, the second storm's low-pressure center is positioned over Tennessee and Kentucky, slightly north of where the GFS model places it, southern Tennessee. Most of the snowfall from this system is focused on areas like West Virginia, continuing the trend of cold and snowy conditions in the east. The European model shows a slightly different scenario compared to the GFS model for this potential snow event. For Virginia and Maryland, the system is positioned slightly further north than the GFS indicates and progresses more quickly. As a result, snowfall totals are somewhat lower in this run. Around January 9th, the main issue appears to be a less pronounced dip in the jet stream, which doesn't quite reach the Gulf of Mexico. This prevents the northern piece of energy from aligning with the southern piece. In this setup, the northern piece outpaces the southern one. For instance, if the northern energy is here while the southern energy is still back here, the jet stream would be shaped like this, causing the southern piece to swing westward rather than moving up the coast. For the storm to take a snowier track, the northern and southern pieces of energy need to remain more aligned. Ideally, the northern energy would be positioned closer to the southern piece, allowing the jet stream to guide the system up the coast. In this European model run, the southern energy remains stalled further south. By January 11th, snowfall extends as far south as Mexico, New Mexico, and Texas, but the storm lacks the pull necessary to intensify and move up the coast, like in the GFS solution. Eventually, a low develops around the Carolinas by January 14th, bringing some snowfall to the mid-Atlantic. However, it's a weaker and more delayed system compared to previous runs. The cold air remains a consistent factor, with a very high probability, 90% plus, of seeing colder than normal conditions across much of the country. Severe Arctic air is almost guaranteed, but the storm's specifics, track, intensity, and timing are far less certain. In terms of precipitation, the European model is less impressive than previous runs. The southern energy remains too far south, and areas further north miss out on the snowfall. Even the northwest appears slightly drier. Consequently, precipitation anomalies show below average totals across almost the entire United States. Looking at total snowfall, the model highlights significant accumulations for areas like Texas, New Mexico, and northern Mexico. An unusual occurrence, though not impossible given the intense cold. And guys, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment. See you in the next video.